Hi, this is Saeks, Katrina Mitchell. Katrina, welcome. We are ready for our flash webinar. We've got people joining. We've got the room filling up. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ford. Thank you so much for taking time to do this to help our community. I was on a webinar with you last week, and you provided so much valuable information so fast. I was like, oh my goodness, we have got to get this shared out with the franchise network. So thank you so much.
This is best practices for hosting a virtual webinar.
So I just want to thank everybody for joining us. This is Ford's going to give us a ton of tips, so I'm going to hand it back over to him in just a second. This is part of Speak's initiative called Here to Help. It's a series of content, web pages, and tools that franchisees and franchisors can use right now. Everything from money, leadership techniques, to turning obstacles and challenges into opportunities. So we've got a lot of great resources for you guys. And again, thank you, Ford. I'm going to just turn it right back to you.
A lot of you may know me. I've seen a lot of the people that are registered. I've spoken at some of your conferences and some of you I haven't, but my typical topics are related to business growth, local marketing, and sales performance. I've been presenting virtual and live keynote presentations and intensives for over 25 years. So I understand the top challenges that franchise organizations have, helping your franchisees follow their systems and helping them use the tools that you give them. And so what you're going to be able to do today is to adapt the things that we're talking about to the new world that we live in today. I want all of you to be staying safe and leveraging virtual meetings. And if you have questions, go ahead and just type them into the chat. Katrina will be able to see them, and I will stop in a few minutes to be able to look at those and see if there's any questions too. So again, as much as it's great to do keynotes, this isn't the new normal. The new normal is now virtual meetings. And so while this meeting is on how to use virtual meetings, Katrina and I have also set up where if you're interested in having a virtual presentation for your internal group, I'm offering them for free right now to any franchise brand, whether I've worked with you or not. As a gift to Katrina, if you want me to present for your franchisees on a particular topic during this time to help them improve their skills, just reach out to Katrina or reach out to me direct if you want, but it'll be going through Katrina. There's no charge for it on my end for this right now for what I'm offering. But let's move on. Ask questions. And I'm going to actually ask the first question. So I'm actually going to go back to this camera view for a moment, and I'm going to ask our first poll, which is going to be, what is your virtual meeting experience? So if you would, everybody, if you would go ahead and just answer that question real quick, that'd be great. Okay, so we got a couple rock stars, bunch of novices. So while you're doing this, we're going to cover the quick things that you need to know as far as the technology and the platforms, but we're also going to cover some of the cultural things, how to be human, how to actually set up the environment. So this is good. So we've got most people have answered. Some of you haven't answered. I can see the list of the attendees who didn't answer, but that's okay. We just wanted to get a feeling of where you are with your experience so I can tailor this as we go. And we've got about 38% are in the novice category. 48% have done this before. So I'm sure you've been challenged with some of the technical things that happen. And then we've got a few rock stars on the call. So that's great. And Katrina, can you see the results yet?
I can.
Awesome. All right, everybody. And also, we will have tents if you have a question, depending on our timing, we can open it up for questions after that too, that we can answer. So we want to embrace these opportunities that we have right now to use virtual meetings. And I want to make sure that everybody's really clear on the benefits. Well, obviously, you're going to stay safe. And we'll talk which platform to use in a minute, but really the virtual meetings with your franchisees, with your franchise staff. I know we've got some executives on the line, Monty and everybody. Hi, Monty. And so you also want to do it with your teams as well as with your franchisees. You want to engage them. You want to engage your customers. How can you use virtual meetings to engage your current customer base? I know on a lot of the franchise brands that I work with, they're closed. Like Orange Theory, I'm a member of Orange Theory. They're closed right now. I can't use my membership. There's several others I could name that they just can't work. So I know they're all challenged. So how can you use this technology during this time, not just during this pandemic that we're all going through, but afterwards? How does this become a natural part of your organization, to share best practices, and to have training opportunities. So yes, in-person meetings are never going to really go away. I think that conferences have a unique dynamic to it. You can't just replace it with virtual, but virtual definitely has a place. Obviously, what's great about it is they're available on multiple devices, excellent for sharing virtual content and visual content, sharing videos. Don't have any videos today, but it's great. And then, of course, we can record it and use it for a replay. So like today, we've got many people on today's webinar, but we're also going to record it, and then it's going to go up on Franchise Speakers, franchisespeakers.com website, on where you can go for Here to Help, because again, you want to be able to use it. And how can you do that? What videos, what training, what best practices, what virtual meetings could you create with your franchisees or other franchise experts like Troy Hazard and Scott Greenberg and Vince Pacenti and all the other experts that are out there? We're all willing to help you with your franchisees right now or your brand. I think it's really important that we cover the human connection of virtual meetings. And, I would start out with, when you start a meeting, ask, how are you? And actually wait for them to answer. In this case, with, many people on the line, I didn't just spend that, because we're doing this as a flash webinar, which means we only got 29 minutes. So I wanted to make sure I covered as much as I could. But when you're doing your meeting, make sure you connect with your colleagues. Laugh at yourself when technology fails. I got news for you. If you weren't a rock star, some of you, weren't, you're going to have technology problems. You're going to share the wrong screen. The phone's going to ring. A cat's going to go across the keyboard. Your lights are going to fall. Your backdrop's going to fall. You name it, it's going to happen. Empathize when technology fails with your colleagues. Give them some grace. A lot of your people aren't used to it. I know my wife right now runs a Pilates studio. She's doing virtual training with her students, trying to engage them because she lost all of her business. They can't come in to her studio. And what's happening is people are on Zoom calls, but then their email pops up and they think they got disconnected, or a browser pops up over the Zoom or the platform and they can't see it. So just realize, give people some grace. Enjoy the appearance of your colleagues' pets. I know that's happened with Katrina. And what's your dog's name again, Katrina?
Cecil Roy. He does a photo bomb often on our meetings.
Right, and it's going to happen. So just get used to that it is part of the human part of the virtual side here. And then, of course, kids are going to come in. They're going to run by the room. There's fails out there. Let's move on. Set aside a few minutes for a water cooler chat. I understand that your virtual meetings, you're going to have to allow for some of that interaction, where as a CEO myself, I'm like, we don't have time for that stuff. But really, we got to take some time for that. Take responsibility to learn how to use all the video functions and to be a collaborator. Learn how to ask questions. Learn how to mute your microphone. Now, in this case, we're presenting a webinar. If we were presenting a meeting, well, then everybody would have their microphone on, and you'd want to make sure, as etiquette, leave your mic off until you're ready to speak. Raise your hand, either visually on the camera or just with the functionality. And then, of course, say thank you and offer genuine well wishes before leaving the meeting. Realize that this is the personal side. We're going to cover the next piece on working with remote teams. Now, some of you are saying, wow, he speaks fast. This is not a keynote presentation, everybody. This is not how I'm going to present a keynote. This is me trying to give you as much as I can in 29 minutes and counting. All right, so now you need to be a human side. You know the benefits of working with virtual meetings. What about if you're working with a remote team? So here are a few tips for that. Daily check-ins. With my team, I'm a CEO of an agency as well as a keynote speaker. So I've got employees in the same thing, and we're all remotely working. We've got call continuity, but we have daily check-ins and afternoon check-ins. But when we're on the call, we don't just ask what you're working on. We want to ask for specific results. What results are you working on? Same thing with our weekly and monthly reports. I don't want to know what they're working on. I want to know that by Tuesday, I'm going to get this done. And by Thursday, I'm going to get this done. Here are my commitments from last week. Here's what I'm going to get completed by next week. So make sure that you create a culture of language that encourages your team members that you're working with to be specific about actions, because when they're working from home, this is not a time for Netflix and distractions. It's a privilege to be able to work from home. And so it's no time or space for learned helplessness. Business still has to go on. We have to move on past this. And so I just want to give you a couple tips on how to really work well with your remote teams. So now let's go into the part that a lot of people asked about, which was, okay, this technology side. Well, don't get seduced by technology. On the screen right now are the main platforms available. We're using Zoom. I like Zoom. I'm for FTC compliance reasons. I'm not endorsing any one platform or affiliate link. I'm just telling you, it's the platform that I have found to be best. I used to use GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar. I now use Zoom. Microsoft Teams is now getting a fast second in the marketplace. That's what Skype for Business has now gone into Teams. Teams is a different platform. It does work. I have it, but I still like to use Zoom. Amazon Chime is good. Blue Jeans is great if you're doing audio. If you really want high quality audio, then use the Blue Jeans platform. Cisco is a good one. WebEx. I don't hear that much about that much anymore, Katrina. I don't know if you do, but
Yeah,
I definitely, Zoom seems to be the main one. It's also starting to be synonymous with, let's have a Zoom meeting, and people are really talking about a web conference. So it's,
and I'm just going to interject really quickly.
yeah,
Before
sure.
this all started happening in March, we had more and more franchise brands that were moving all of their team communications to Zoom, and it was becoming really mainstream for us to set meetings with our clients on Zoom. So we've been using Zoom for quite some time, and it's really seamless, really easy, and I think it's a great application. So back to you, Ford.
Yeah, one of the things that I've done too. One of the reasons that I like Zoom is doing a pre-event call, right? If like I know Screenmobile is one of the franchisees that are on the call today, and one of the things that was great is being able to have a pre-event Zoom call before the keynote presentation with them to meet their staff and their VP and their marketing. So it adds that personal connection. But from you as a franchisee, how can you use this with your team, and how can you use this with your actual customers and everything?
Yeah.
All right, great point. So we know that there's a lot of different technologies out there, but don't get seduced by technology. Remember, it's used to communicate, for management, for training, for service and prospecting, and of course, also for sales needs. So what questions should you ask to know what's best for your franchise brand? Well, what are your costs per year? How many hosts or licenses does it have? How many participants can you have? Does it integrate with your other solutions? Like, one of the things that I like about Zoom is it integrates with Acuity, which is my calendar scheduling. So if I want to have someone get time on my schedule, they can just go to talkwithford.com and then get 30 minutes. And that's the same for you. Anybody listening who would like to get time with me, if you have any other questions beyond this, it's no charge. There's no upsell or opt-in or anything. You can just go to talkwithford.com. Pick a time. It'll put you on my calendar, and it also automatically sends you the Zoom meeting link, which is great. Of course. And then is there a free trial, which most of them have a free trial. So now we've talked about the meetings and how to engage real quickly, giving you some tips on the human side. And we talked about technology and picking out the right platform. Let's assume now that you already have a platform and you're ready to actually start rocking your meetings. Audio quality is critical. Take the time to get yourself a microphone that's going to be a clear audio. Don't just use the webcam mic. You can use the webcam mic if you want, but I highly recommend either getting a headset, a wireless mic if you're doing stand-up. So what I do for franchise brands, if I'm actually going to present, an actual presentation, I actually use this remote microphone here. And then I stand up and I've got a studio, and I actually, film a presentation live, do it live, other than like my home studio that I'm in right now. So there's always that microphone. I use a Blue Yeti, which is what I'm using today that I'm speaking on. You can use your headphones, you can use your phone. But again, audio quality is critical. People will forgive poor video. They will not forgive poor audio. Next is your camera. Take a look at your camera. Now I'm going to go, since we're doing a webinar versus a meeting, if I was doing a meeting, these are a couple snapshots from webinars that I did yesterday. One guy had the top of his head showing, and the other person had, got up and actually walked away from the meeting. So mute your camera, make sure your head's in the screen, make sure your camera is on, because again, we're in this other medium, and you've got to take a look at what shows up. What is showing up now? A lot of you are having trouble getting webcams right now. I get it. Amazon is sold out. Best Buy is having troubles. So again, you have to, if you have a laptop that might have an integrated camera, use that. But what cameras can you really use? So a couple things on cameras. Obviously a USB webcam. I prefer Logitech webcams for just my main use. But one of the things I like about it is I like to have it on a tripod that I can actually move it around versus right on the top of my screen. A couple other cameras that I'd like to mention now that, again, during this stay at home, work at home, aren't necessarily relevant, but I would want to mention it for the event that we're doing here, which is these three here, which are for conference rooms or huddle rooms. If you are coming together, or if you're one of those essential businesses that is actually still working, then you might want to have virtual meetings with some people. Those are three good ones: HuddleCam, Logitech Meetup, and the Owl. One of the things that I like about the Meeting Owl is that it sits in the middle of the conference room and actually is voice activated by whoever's talking. So if you have a group of people around a conference room table, as one person talks, you can see that they spotlight that video. So it's a unique camera, 360-degree camera, which I found it to be pretty powerful. All right, so now we've talked about the technology. You've got a good microphone. You know you have to have a good camera. What do you do before the meeting or the webinar? Well, obviously you want to plan. One of the things that Katrina and I did is we planned. We said, okay, we're doing 29 minutes. I'm like, oh, I want 29 hours, but no, 29 minutes. Have a clear agenda. Make sure you have a co-host like we're doing here. Katrina's a co-host. It adds to the dynamic. Plus, it's her business, franchisespeakers.com. She's the founder and the chief matchmaker. So she's going to reach out to people like me and Troy Hazard and Scott Greenberg and all these people to do webinars on particular areas of expertise. Determine the best day and time. Now, what I would tell you a tip, if you're doing these webinars or meetings for your customers, I've actually found that doing it on the quarter hour or like at 15 and 45 sometimes gets more engagement. So again, what you do, pick the best time and date for you and your franchisees or your franchise brand. Decide whether you're going to have a registration or how you're going to do that. Is you're just going to do it for free and send the link out? Are you going to do a registration? But make sure you have reminders that go out, and then double check the details and the time zones. I've had so many people lately send out meetings, and we're in a global marketplace, and they're like, oh, I'm going to have it at 11 o'clock or 11:30. Well, what time zone? Make sure you have an alternate contact host. If there's a problem, who can they reach out to? I've got my team from Prime Concepts on the line monitoring what's going on so they can message me if there's a problem. Before you present, make sure you do a bandwidth test. You can do this after the call, everybody. You can just go to Google or go to your browser and just type in speedtest.net and check your connection. Now for Zoom, you need a minimum of 5 down and 1.5 up. Most of you have higher speed internet, but make sure you have a high enough bandwidth. And if you don't, you need to turn off your camera. Close your background applications. Before we did the webinar, both Katrina and I, we had to turn off Outlook. We had to turn off Slack. I had to turn off Teamwork. I had to turn off a bunch of things so that it wouldn't show up. Turn off notifications, turn off your VPN. Make sure if you're working from home and you're going to do a virtual presentation, especially if you're the presenter, make sure that everybody else in the house isn't all streaming Netflix or on YouTube, watching YouTube videos, because it's going to take your bandwidth. Share files before the meeting. If you're going to send out something like an agenda or a PDF, you can do it through these platforms, but I highly recommend that you also send it out before the meeting. And then, of course, check your audio levels, just like we did. All right, so now we've covered the camera and we covered the microphone. Now let's talk about lighting. You can see in mine, I'm just going to go back to the actual desktop view for just a second. And so I'm at my little home studio here right now, and I've got a program where I can actually control the actual lighting. So I'm not saying that you would do this, because obviously, this is way too much blue that I can do right now, but you can always change your lighting. So again, I'm not saying you have to have some wireless lighting, but what shows up? Are you clear on the camera? Can people see your face? Are you in the frame? Like Katrina is. Great smile, Katrina. All right, moving on. Here we go. So if you want lighting, common sense, just go to Google and type in webcam lighting, and there's all different types of options. I'm not going to go into any real particulars on any particular one. Just make sure that your camera's lit, that you're not sitting in front of a window and there's a lot of backlit. Make sure people can actually see you. Organize with a run through. Make sure if you're doing any type of presentation that you run through it. And before I do that, I'm going to actually, before I talk about during the meeting, I'm going to go look at our questions in just a second here. I'm going to stop the share view.
Well, you know what? I've got a quick question
Sure.
for. There's a whole thing going on now. So about Zoom bombing, and I'm kind of springing this on you. But do you have any techniques? One of our really smart team members found some information on Zoom bombing, which is something that's happening now, where random people are getting on Zoom calls.
Well, if you have a meeting where, okay, so just I'll explain this as quick as I can.
Sorry.
So for my business, I have a personal ID on my Zoom account. It's the same as my phone number, 316-942-1111. Now all of you could bomb me, right? Like now that you have the ID, literally, I just gave you the real number. You could click that number at any time and you would just join the meeting. But what I have done to prevent that is on my meetings, I have a waiting room and I force everybody to go into the waiting room first so that they can't accidentally come on. The other thing I do, because I do a lot of virtual consulting with franchise brands, I also make sure that each company has their own unique ID. That way someone can't photo bomb or video bomb into my meeting. If you're using the same meeting link or you're sharing the same meeting link, yeah, if you have a meeting at 12 o'clock, you might have the person in the wrong time zone jump on in the middle of your meeting and you don't even know why they're there.
Yeah.
So these platforms do prevent that. Have a meeting room, and make sure that you set it so that they can't just join, and that'll work. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right. We have a question. Do you recommend using an alternate background feature in the Zoom platform? No. I would say, well, yes. If you have a green screen, so I'm going to share my camera right now. I'm going to spotlight my video for just a second. Okay, so I'm in my home office right here, and here's a green screen. So if I want to do a presentation here and I have a stand-up camera, I can put the green screen on, and then I can use an alternate background. So what they're saying is you can actually go to a virtual background, and for example, I can put on, San Diego or the moon, or I present for Glow for the Global Leaders Organization, so I can change my background. I would just say this, if it's not distracting and it's branded, it's a good idea. I've done this for some franchise brands. When I'm speaking for them, I'll put a background on. I don't want them to see all this garbage behind me, right? So if I'm presenting, I'll put their logo in the corner. I'll get my green screen, and it works very well. So that's a great question. Just make sure that you're using one that doesn't just distract from the video, which a lot of people have done with their backgrounds. And then it works against what you're trying to do. Okay, what do you do during the meeting, right? What are you going to do during the meeting? Well, join early, look into the camera, remove unnecessary movement, be careful of your hand movement and other things in the background. Don't have a ceiling fan on, that's really distracting. Have a clean backdrop like Katrina does. She's got a nice backdrop, logo repeat backdrop. And of course, big one, especially on meetings, not so much for webinars because you guys are all muted, but make sure you mute yourself when you're not talking. Just get in the habit, think about like a walkie-talkie, just push to talk, and it's much more effective. All right, next, choose audio over video. If you start having bandwidth problems, go to audio. You still have more problems, dial in. Make it engaging. Share screens like we've done doing today. We've shared the screen. We've gone to camera view. We've gone back and forth. Stay on task. If you're in a meeting, that's staying on task, and someone brings up something that's outside the scope of the meeting, that's when you need to say, hey, let's just park that. And then really important for virtual meetings, make sure you have a conclusion and that there's specific action steps that they can take. So let's talk about some do's and don'ts as we wrap up here. You've all been on meetings, if you've been on more than one, where everybody's going, can you hear me? Is my mic on? Can you hear me? Look, test your microphone ahead of time. If your mic's not muted, most likely they can hear you. So just be careful of that, because otherwise you get people talking over where it's, I'm sorry, no, you go. No, well, I go. Well, I was saying, and you spend 20 minutes just trying to figure out who's going to talk. So there is a little bit of etiquette that's necessary for the virtual meetings to be able to take turns. Some other do's and don'ts. These are some that are recent. There was a viral video where this poor woman unfortunately had to go to the bathroom, didn't realize her camera was on, set her laptop down, and this is all over the news. It's nothing I made up. And then, of course, cats. Cats just, I was on with my team. Amy, our project manager, had her cat walk right across in front. It's going to happen. But if you're doing a presentation with your franchisees and you're presenting, you really want to control that environment. Mute virtual assistants. I've done this before, and I can do it today. Hey, Google, what's 5 plus 10? And I probably just activated all of your Google devices or Siri or Alexa. So just make sure you mute the voice assistants if you're on a meeting, so that if someone else says something, it doesn't automatically interrupt it. And then, of course, this is a viral video that went viral. This poor newscaster was for the BBC, was on, and his kids just broke into the meeting and totally disrupted it. And again, the human side, it's going to happen. And so as we get ready to wrap up here, we've covered a lot in a very short period of time. I'm going to go back to the camera view, but if you want, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. If you're interested in a presentation on, business success or local sales and marketing or anything digital, I'm happy to provide them for free right now to help you engage your franchisees. If they're working, great. And if they're not working, so keep that in mind. So, Katrina, we're almost right at the top of the time. We covered a lot, didn't we?
You went really fast. This is awesome. Thank you so much, Ford. I just really, really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I was just checking our questions to make sure we didn't have anything. If anyone, I know we've got a lot of friends that we've worked with for many years on the line, Victoria, and if anyone has a specific question, if anyone has anything you need at all, please reach out to us. We're here to help. It's our Here to Help website. We have lots and lots of resources that we're gathering and sharing. And our hearts are we're all in this together. And, I run a small business too, so I know what it's like. And we just really want to find a way to help each other as quickly as we can. So just please reach out. Let me know what we can do to help. Let Ford know what he can do to help. And if we don't have the answer, we'll go find an expert that does.
Absolutely. I put my link in. Again, you can Google my name. You can find me on franchisespeakers.com. I really appreciate it. I've seen a lot of friends on my line. I hope you guys are doing well. If there's any questions, reach out to me, talkwithford.com, or you have my contact information. It's great. So Katrina, you're going to be playing in the next one, and I'll help you run it. So get a hold of Troy, get a hold of Scott, get a hold of Vince and your other rock stars that you have out there. And let's get this so we can really help these franchise brands make it through this tough time.
Thank you so much, Ford. I so appreciate you. You are just a dear friend, a great partner, and I just love you.
Love you too. Bye, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Bye for now.